Hi guys, and welcome back to the Blues Focus podcast. Before we get into today's podcast, I'd just like to give a big shout out to our current patrons. And if you'd like to join these names in the brand new Blues Focus Hall of Fame, you can join our Patreon page for just £1 a month. So I think it's a bargain if you ask me. But, you know, perks included will be monthly giveaways and early access to guest pods. The link will be in the description anyway for our Patreon packages, and you can see what takes your fancy there. Well, that's enough from me. Let's get straight into today's Blues Focus podcast. Thank you for joining us as always.
People that really weren't qualified to make good decisions for the football club weren't there. There was no one in position. So then you get people filling that vacuum that are either fly-by-nights or people that really haven't got a clue, or people that are just sycophants to these rich owners, and from that point on, it's a downward spiral, and that's happened at Birmingham for far too long.
Support for today's Blues Focus podcast is brought to you by none other than Manscaped. Manscaped specialised in all your below-the-waist grooming needs. They've only just recently landed in the UK, so you could be one of the first men in the country to even try out their products. So get looking at them now. They're definitely big in other countries, and they've finally dropped in the UK. I think many people can say, we've gone years without using the right tools for the job. So it's about time we started using the right tools for the job to avoid accidents. I'm sure we've all had uncomfortable moments in situations like that we'd rather not share. But to avoid those moments, why not invest in specialised precision tools to get the job done correctly? They've recently launched the Lawnmower 3.0, which I actually have here with me right now to show you. There you go. There it is in action. Got a little torch. I think that the torch is an interesting feature. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that on an electrical trimmer before. So no, it's definitely different. And you get a docking station with it and stuff, and plenty of little fittings you can have on the top of the trimmer. It's charged lasts up to like 90 minutes. So if you're a bit bored in a Blues game, then go shave your lower regions for the full 90 minutes. I mean, we are that bad, so it wouldn't surprise me if somebody did. It's waterproof, so if you wanted to take it in the shower, that's not a problem. It's not going to blow up on you or fail or anything, so you're covered there. They've also upgraded to a 7,000 RPM motor with a quiet stroke technology. Like I mentioned earlier, smooth, quiet, makes things a lot easier. It's not just for below the waist grooming, really. It can be for body grooming in general. But I feel like that as a whole definitely sells itself as a unique trimmer. So I'd highly recommend it, having tried it myself. So it's definitely worth a go anyway. And if you buy one of their packages, you get plenty of other little gifts, such as this wash bag, some toner and some deodorant and whatnot, and the docking station, obviously. I mean, they even do t-shirts in boxes and stuff like that if you're really interested in the fashion side of things. To be fair, their clothes are quite comfy, having also tried them myself. But no, having seen all that, if you are interested, then to get 20% off plus free shipping, use the code BluesFocus20 at manscaped.com. And there you are, sorted. You can have a nice little trim wherever that may be, but obviously it is specialised in certain areas. But whatever suits you, give it a go. So just to recap there, that's 20% off plus free shipping using the code BluesFocus20. So let's get into the podcast.
Hello and welcome to another Blues Focus podcast with me, your host, John Graham. Once again, many thanks for taking the time to download this pod, and please review, share, and leave your comments on all the platforms you're downloading from. It's really important that we have your feedback. We'd like to debate it going forward. And if you're watching on YouTube, again, please subscribe and never miss a future piece of content. Delighted to say I've got Tom Oxland with me as usual. How you going, Tom?
Good, thanks, mate. You?
Yeah, very well, mate. Very well, especially after a win. So, yeah, and I think really, really special guest today. A guy that was instrumental in bringing on so many good players over an extended period of time. So, Richard Beale, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem, John. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Thomas.
There was.
So just to sort of kick it off, Richie, obviously spent sort of 15 years at Blues, going back to sort of 2004, and lots of senior roles. Speller's first team coach over that period as well, and obviously not long ago got your sort of UEFA Pro license, which I know that's incredibly difficult to get, and probably a select bunch that do. But was that? If we take it back to day one, how did you sort of get involved in the game? Was coaching always in the forefront, or was it playing first and you sort of, I guess, morphed into that?
Yeah, I mean, 100% playing was first and foremost. And, I love my playing career. I didn't play as a professional in England. I played semi-professional in England, and I actually had a spell abroad in America playing professional. So I was really, really happy that I managed to achieve that and do that. But yeah, came back and pretty much played semi-pro football. Alongside my playing, I was coaching, and the move into Birmingham came about because I was with the Solihull Football Development Scheme, a guy called Mark Fogarty, who was a good friend of mine, and we used to play against Birmingham. And Richard Stevens was the academy manager at the time, and after a couple of games of taking our development scheme into the club, he asked if I'd like to come and do an age group, and I jumped at it, being a lifelong Blues fan, and my dad, my granddad, like many of the fans listening, you guys, I'm sure, the club's in your blood, and I didn't want to work for anyone else or do anything else really. So it was a real big honour, and I was really lucky to have, I think, 17 years in the end.
Wow, okay.
At the club, and I started off with the under-11s with a young Nathan Redmond, Mitchell Hancocks, and Callum Riley, who all went on to play. So it was a really, really good start for me, and obviously moved on from there.
So back in when you sort of you took the reins with that sort of age group team, club had been through, and as a fan yourself, you'd have seen probably the decade prior to that was, let's say, a little bit sketchy. And then obviously when you came in sort of 2004, it seemed like we were very much a mainstay in the Championship, pushing for promotion. So when you got in there, could you see the investment coming into the club, and were they doing the right things?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I remember my dad taking me down, and I was at the Kidderminster game when we lost, and I remember the heartache of Altrincham before that, and the Kumars and all that type of stuff. So I've seen the club like everybody else in the depths, and yeah, I suppose I was lucky. I was there during a time when there was a lot of investment. I mean, what we'd give personally, what I'd give now for the goals in the Sullivans back, the goals in Sullivans back with what's going on currently. But it was great, obviously, to get promoted and be around it when we got promoted, and then the highs of the Carling Cup final, and staying in the Premier League for a few years was great. And then obviously the heartache come back down, and it's such a shame to see the decline of the club the last few years.
Yeah, and just from a coaching point of view, you've obviously gone in there. As we say, you coached, you reeled off the names, some very good footballers. Was there a philosophy throughout the club, or did you bring in, was it sort of age group by age group, or was there a master plan and you had to sort of try play a certain way, or how did that sort of play out?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, it's there'll always be at the top of the academy that people always say they've got philosophy and a way of doing things. If I'm honest, no, we people like to say the words philosophy and the way of doing things. I used to coach, for the kids, how I thought that those kids would benefit most, and teaching the game and teaching them the real way. I think a lot of the times in academies it's all very technical, and that's all well and good to a level, but the lads have got to learn the real world, the real game, and I think they're the real crucial bits. And along the way, you have to sort of ascertain very quickly what they're missing, and the gaps in their game, and it might be the gaps in their personality and their makeup, and try and help them best to cope with first team football as and when they get there. And a lot of that is technical, definitely, and I think all academies do a good job in that, in teaching the kids the ball manipulation, the skill work, but the gaps often come in mentality and in the actual tactical side of the game, and dealing with setbacks and even dealing with successes. A success, a 16, 17, 18-year-old in youth team football isn't going to prepare for first team football. You've got to be used to taking knocks and dealing with that. And I think that's the hardest bit for coaches in academies to recreate. And if you can do that, then I think you're really, really helping the young players.
Just I suppose obviously you spent such a long time in the youth system at Blues, and you've worked with so many young talented players, you know, your Nathan Redmond, your Demarai Grays, even Callum Riley and Mitch Hancock's. But who was the most technically gifted or kind of just naturally gifted player that you work with while at Blues?
Obviously, Jude's got to come into that equation.
Yeah, definitely.
A ridiculous talent as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's got to be one of those lads that we've named. I've really got a soft spot for Nathan. You know, having come in and working with him from the age of 10 and seeing him go right through to the full England team was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard to distinguish between Jude, Nathan, Demarai. Really, the three of them have done really, really well. So yeah, one of those.
How good is Jude's brother?
Yeah, a very, very good player as well. I mean, I haven't worked with his brother myself. Obviously, I've watched him in the academy, and yeah, he's another really, really good talent. And hopefully, the guys there now can nurture him and get him into that first team, and hopefully, he can do the same things for the club that Jude did.
Yeah,
Definitely.
without doubt. And I think just on, so how did your sort of, you obviously made a massive impact with you pretty much from the get go, because you wouldn't have been there for the period of time that you did. So, what sort of, I think probably in its best moments, and we all know what's going on at the moment. Did you feel you really had a say in, you know, I guess the future of the club? You know, a key stakeholder in, hate to say the word business, but it ultimately is. And did you feel that you had that sort of free reign and that real sort of, you know, critical element of a football club?
Yeah, when I got to the age of 30, I became the reserve team manager, as it was then. Alex McLeish gave me that job, and we were in the Premier League then. It was really, really hard for the young players to break through, and the club weren't really looking to the youth setup. But you know, it was still great to be involved, and I was obviously taking on a Saturday morning anyone not in the first team squad. I was taking Premier League footballers. I remember, you know, Kevin Phillips coming back from injury, being in sessions, and Nikola Zigic for a spell being out of the team, and it was fantastic for me and fantastic for the young players to have players of that ilk to work alongside and to learn off. But it was only really ever when we, unfortunately, the club got relegated to the Championship where the players that you were working with got the opportunity to come to the fore, and on a few occasions that happened at the club. And at that stage, the club leans more on you for your views on these players, and the pressure was on a little bit to make sure that there were players to plug the gaps. Unfortunately, we had a good system and some good players, and hopefully people say good coaching, whereby the players were able to step in, and a number of them step up and do a really good job for the team.
Yeah, I think that was going to lead on to, you know, that pressure, because it must come on, because, you know, that sort of, we all know when you go out that Premiership trap door, then unless you're going to massively reinvest again, which, you know, Blues haven't really done that on a couple of occasions. So yeah, the pressure would be on, and I suppose, did you ever find yourself in a position where you're putting players in that you just didn't think were quite ready for it?
No, I'd always be very honest, John, and you know, whether it was academy recruitment, whether it was the job I'd done or the job other people had done, if there weren't any players, I'd tell the manager there's currently no players, and if you know, it's up to them or other people then to decide, well, why is there no players ready? Why haven't we got a centre forward or a player in that position? And I could only ever work with the players I had. Every single day I go to work, even now, whatever job I do, you know, in the past when I was, you know, done all sorts of jobs, not even in football, but I'll just give my best and give my all, and it's for other people to decide whether that's good enough. Fortunately, as I said, you know, during the duration of the time I was at Birmingham, invariably we had a number of good young players that would come into the team or good enough to go into the team. And the good thing about it was as well, I had managers that often listened to my point of view and would take the boys in training and then see for themselves that, you know, whether they were good enough or not. And lots did, which is really, really good. And, you know, I also think there was players that we had that didn't get the opportunity at Birmingham that unfortunately have had to go to pastures new or through timing or whatever, unfortunately probably drifted down when given an opportunity. I think they've had a career, and that's a reality of youth development as well. But yeah, no, I'd always be honest with every manager that came in, and it's I was very fortunate that a lot of the managers, and I think I had 11 or 12 first team managers while I was there. I got on really well with all of them, and I was able to forge a relationship and have a say on whether a player was good enough to go and train with the first team or play in the team.
During during that period you were at Blues, like you say, you worked alongside so many different Blues managers. Which one would you have said had the most influence on your career in general as a coach, and also, I suppose, the one that you kind of got on with the best?
It's a great question and really hard to answer, actually. I mean, Alex gave me my chance. That's without a doubt. I was sort of my main role when Alex gave me the 23s job, the reserve team manager job, was I was under 14 coach. I was the education officer, and I used to go out every day and assist the under 18 coach or the reserve team coach. So really, I came from nowhere. But the reserve team coach at the time, a guy called Malky Thompson, was friends with Alex McLeish, and I think he was really appreciative of the help and guidance I gave him as a local lad and someone that had been at the club a long time. And he definitely put a word in for me. And that, I suppose, pushed me ahead of some of the other people that might have wanted that opportunity at the time. So I was really fortunate to get that chance. Alex gave me a chance sort of on trial and came and watch me work. And obviously I was very fortunate. He then decided to give me the job. So I got a lot of time for Alex, and got a lot to thank Alex for. Chris Houghton was fantastic for the whole club. He was only there a short spell of time, but learnt lots off Chris, and he also did a lot for me and had me around the first team group, which was great. Lee Clark came in and under very, very trying circumstances. Again, when Terry McDermott and Derek Fazackerley left the club, Lee decided to push me and Steve Watson up. So a big opportunity for me to work with the first team, and really a dream of mine, really. Having gone down to Blues as a 4 and 5 year old with my dad, and stood on the cop and sat in the family stand and sat in the paddock and seen everything the club's gone through, and knowing what the club means to me and my family, to stand there on the touchline in the dugout as at a first team game, and to help to pick the team and train the team. There are times I'll never ever forget in my coaching career, and I'd give anything to go back and have that opportunity again. And if that comes true, then fantastic. If it doesn't, I've always got those times. So Lee was brilliant for me as well. Chris was brilliant for me. And as I said, I mean, Gary Rowett, I got on great with. Gary Monk was fantastic in the time he was at the club. The job he did, I think, was exceptional. And what people seem to overlook is how many young players he had trained with the first team. Gary Monk probably had more young players training with the first team than any other manager. A lot of that was circumstance, but a lot of that was, he had belief in the young players as well. And I think he just missed out on, obviously, the best of Jude, which was a shame. But, without a doubt, he'd have played Jude if he'd have been kept on and had the benefit of that. So lots of managers, lots of good times, and all good.
Definitely. And I think, like you say, you touched upon the Jude and Gary thing. There was a lot of controversy around that and all sorts of rumours. And hearing your kind of brief view on that is good to hear. And I think a lot of people were sad to see Gary go, but then you hear different things and then you start to question it. But it's hard when you can't hear from the other side, because he can't really openly speak about it. I doubt he will be able to for a long time. But speaking of kind of controversial times of managers while you've been there, like you say, Alex McLeish, who you work closely with, you're an honest guy. What were your thoughts when he made that controversial switch when he left Blues?
I was just gutted because I got on really well with Alex. As I said, he gave me the opportunity. I mean, it was as much a bolt from the blue to me, probably as to the fan zone. He found out maybe a day or two before it happened, and I was really, really shocked. I understood why he did it, though, in terms of leaving Blues. Obviously, as a Blues fan, it's hard to imagine the first team. I mean, listen, I ultimately did it. I left Blues and I went to Villa.
I was coming on to that.
But I mean, I'm happy to talk about that as well. But I mean, especially for managers that I suppose aren't fans of the club, they're just jobs. They are just jobs, and so it's a little bit easier for them to, I think, to make that move. But yeah, it was a shock. But at the time, I mean, he was getting told he had no money. He was getting told he couldn't do this, he couldn't do that. The club had got relegated. It would have been, you know, sort of very, very damning for his career to stay at Birmingham, and he'd have had his hands tied behind his back, you know. So I totally understood why he did that.
Definitely, and I think unfortunately it kind of damned his career either way. When he left Blues, it didn't really work out at Villa anyway.
No, I think ultimately it was as hard at Villa for him as it would have been at Blues.
Exactly. So you know, but you look briefly upon kind of the anniversary dinner. He really looked to make amends when you see kind of clips from that, which was great.
He's a great guy, and the fans will say, "Oh yeah, loyal," but he is, you know, he's a good chap, and I understand. As a Blues fan, first and foremost, I understood the reasons why he left, and you know, at the time, Villa are a Premier League club, so you know, hasn't got blue blood going through their veins. You know, you can understand it.
And I think from my point of view, we've had Roger Johnson on last week. And obviously, when he went down the road to Wolves from Blues, he got a bit of clog for that. Yeah. But I do think over time, I mean, Blues fans being as we are, you know, those first couple of years are incredibly raw. And then I think after time,
we can forgive.
Well, yeah, even, you know, with McLeish, I mean, if he'd have gone and won the bloody European Cup with Villa, I would have been best pleased. But, you know, it was, you know, it wasn't great for him. So, but you know, he ultimately was superb for Blues. So you know, I think that a lot of water goes under the bridge, doesn't it? And now it's people will remember the cup win probably more than him going to Villa, to be honest.
Definitely.
So just want to go back very, very quickly because we had Lee Clark on as well, and I think when he came into the club, I think it was probably one of those job interviews where you sold the dream, you sign your contract, and then the dream disappears pretty quickly. How difficult was it? Because some of the stories he said, you just like, and again from a fan, you're not privy to the detail. No. So how difficult was that?
Yeah, straight away from when Lee came in, and I thought I was going to be going. Everyone said to me he had Steve Watson, who's his best friend, as the under-23 coach at Huddersfield. So I thought I was on the way out. So I went straight in. Lee spoke to all the staff, and he said, "Look, if anyone wants to speak to me, come in the office." So I went straight in and said, "Look, you know, Lee, I've been told that Steve Watson, you want to bring him in. You know, just where do I stand?" And he was very honest. He said, "Look, 100% I want to bring him in, but it'd be to work alongside you." So straight from the off, I think me and Lee had a very good relationship, very honest, and I was really, really grateful that he included me in everything, really. And so I was privy to a lot that was going on. It was very, very hard. You know, I know that listen, I mean, this type of money is ridiculous for all of us, like, you know, normal guys. But the most he could pay a player at the time was £5,000 a week. And in the Championship at the time, that was probably, you know, it was a bottom 3 or 4 budget he had. So he had to wheel and deal. I think he did really, really well with that, brought in a lot of good players. And, you know, I remember we signed Matt Green, and, you know, we had £2,000 left in the budget. You know, clubs in the conference play more than £2,000 to players, but we had to wheel and deal. So that was tough, but I think Lee enjoyed that. And you know, you do enjoy trying to find, you know, a rough diamond, and to stay up, you know, in that season we did stay up was an achievement, if I'm honest. And that's not right for Birmingham City, but it was at that time, and there was lots of things transpiring against Lee. It was a crazy time for the club, but ultimately I think more and more fans are doing it now. I think they're looking back, and at that time, you know, £5,000 maximum per play. You know, there's probably players there now on 6 times that amount. Yeah. Maybe not now, but certainly over the last couple of years, but certainly a lot more than that. And we're still struggling. So he actually probably did a better job than people thought at the time.
100%. How was that day like for you when we stayed up at Bolton? What was that experience like?
Honestly, apart from my kids and my wedding day, and obviously winning the Carling Cup and special day, right up there, because it was everyone, you know, had us down to go down, to then go down to 2-0. Leicester to go 1 up. You know, there was 15 minutes left. It was like we were dead in the water, weren't we? And be on the bench and part of that, and to know how much had gone into everything building into that was amazing. I remember we played on the Tuesday night. I think it was it Wigan, the game on the Tuesday night before we lost 1-0.
Yeah.
And I never used to say much as first team coach in the change room to the group. And I honestly remember saying, the only thing I said was, lads, listen, on Saturday, you're going to remember it for the rest of your life. Whatever happens, if we go down, you'll remember the day you went down for the rest of your life. If we stay up, you'll remember it for the rest of your life. Let's make sure it's that positive one. And I don't know if anyone else remembers that or it's stuck with anyone, but it certainly stuck with me. And for that to play out how it played out on the Sunday against Bolton in the way it was, with all them Blues fans there, was just highly emotional and fantastic. And I remember coming back on the coach and, very rarely happens nowadays in professional football, but we all had a few drinks and then we got back and we went to Morton's in Dickens Heath. And I remember Lee Clark initially not getting in because he was wearing his tracksuit. I had to explain to the bouncer, it was the Blues manager, come on, let him in. You're going to get loads of Blues fans coming if you let him in. And we had a good sing-song that night. And Lee went home quite early that night. He had a party with his family. I remember ended up in Solihull in a curry house. Worse for wear, but fantastic day.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
So obviously sort of skin of our teeth survival, but I think it's probably fair to say, things behind the scenes remain difficult. And that probably then you're coming towards the end of your time at Blue. So what do you remember about that? I mean, was that just sort of gut wrenching? Could you spend, probably thick of half your life there?
I had, and seeing what was happening, seeing what was going on, the writing was on the wall. I probably thought in the January it was a good chance that at the end of the year that would be me. But I didn't want that to happen. But I saw the way the wind was blowing. And I mean, in a nutshell, really, what happened at the under 23 that team that year, that is pretty much the same as the under 23 team now. A lot of them boys are still in the team. We had a really, really young team at the time. We got through to the national final. We're playing some great football, and a lot of them boys were doing really, really well. And I arranged a charity day, don't I? I arranged a charity day for my friend that unfortunately passed away.
I remember.
I arranged it for 2 weeks after the end of the season, so there was going to be no clash. One way or other, it conspired that the final, we got through to the final, was going to be on the same day. And, I had to be at the charity day, and I told everyone at the club that I had to be at the charity day for weeks in advance, and everyone was absolutely fine with it. And then, so I missed one game, but obviously I had full permission from Gary. Gary Monk was the manager at the time and everything. And then I got a letter a few days at the end of the season saying because of that, they conducted an investigation. So that was 100% an excuse. I went to the investigation with Dong, didn't even mention anything about, being away for that game. And it was agreed that the club would, pay my contract up and off I went. So yeah, that was there. It was, it shouldn't have ended like that. It's a shame it ended like that. I think Dong had fell out with Gary. I got on with Gary. So, Dong didn't like that. There was a number of things going on at the time, and I knew the way the club was going. It was a shame. I didn't want to leave. As I said, I'd still be there to this day probably if that situation hadn't occurred. But it is what it is. I don't wish anyone any bad feeling. It's my club. I love the club. I had 16 and a half fantastic years there, and all good things have got to come to an end.
Definitely.
Richard, just on that. Well, there seems to be, and I don't know whether it's just a Blues thing or whether it's just a football. It's just the nature of the beast. Some really good people that have said that we've interviewed ex-players that have been dealt a pretty shit hand, if I'm being honest. Martin Granger being probably towards the top of the list with the way it all panned out for him towards the end. And again, it's really hard to sort of, I suppose, differentiate between your love for the club, but then those decisions are made by the club.
Yeah.
And for you, is it typical in football for, I guess, long service or people that have done a fantastic job? There doesn't seem to be a lot of loyalty kicking around for me.
No, I think you're right. I mean, and as a Blues fan, you look back and I think Birmingham City, not a lot of people seem to leave the club on good terms.
No, absolutely.
But the way I look at it, John, is 100%. The club's the club, and people within the club, which are temporary, which are passing through, are different, and I make that distinction. I 110% will always support Birmingham City, and I've got 2 kids now. They'll support Birmingham City, and I'll do everything for the football club. Like all you guys, like all the fans, I'm a fan. There's 1 or 2 people, well, probably, 1 or 2 people still there that, I don't think of the club's best interests. I don't think they're doing the best for the club. And once they're gone, I think the club would benefit from it, and everything could be rosy, hopefully. But so it's individuals rather than the club. The club's the club, and the club will always be the club. The club belongs to the fans. The club belongs to the city. And I'm a fan. I'm part of that. And other people will pass by, however long that takes, and they'll be gone at some stage. And at that stage, hopefully, the club can move on and prosper again.
Definitely, and I think like you said about how you kind of exited Blues was a shame to see, but it does just sound like they used, was it the Nick Mole Cup?
The Nick Mole Cup, yeah. I as I said, I mean, the final got arranged for literally 2 weeks later than it should have, and I wasn't party to that arrangement. The cynic in me says that was done on purpose. It was on the same day, the same time. I don't know if that was true, but it somehow panned out that way. But listen, it is what it is. And as I said, I harbour no hard feelings towards the football club at all.
Yeah.
And I know there's people that said, well, you should have been at the game. And listen, there was other people that could step into that role, and they did. I'd had a year-long commitment to this charity event. I told everyone a long time in advance that I was going to be there, and I know for a fact that wasn't the reason that I was pushed out. I was probably pushed out for the same reasons as 5 or 6 of the other people at the football club who were Blues fans that wouldn't sit back and just take what was happening at the club and would say stuff. So when you do that, you put your head above the parapet a little bit. People don't like it that are making those decisions, and they'll find a way of getting you out of there. And that was what happened. But I weren't willing just to sit back and let happen what was happening.
Yeah, and I think just quickly, obviously, would you personally, if it got the current regime out, would you take relegation to League One to get them out?
I'd take anything.
Wow, I think that says a lot. That really does say a lot. About how bad this current regime. I mean, they really do make previous owners look so good compared to them. And what was it first like when they came in? Because the club was on such a high under Rowett. We were technically in the playoffs, just out of it on goal difference. Like, what was it first like when they arrived?
But for me, to be honest, I mean, I don't, right in the background, I was, but yeah, you just obviously, like everyone, you think, promises of all this money, and you just hope that the club's going to move forward. But then you start getting like random people involved that making all these claims, and all of a sudden these claims and statements aren't coming through. You straight away start to think, well, what's going on here? And then that person goes, the next one comes in, then that one goes, the next person comes in. And I think at Birmingham, big problem is, remember we had Michael Dunford as chief executive at one stage. Michael Dunford was doing a really, really good job, and he was a good football man. And then he sort of, again, wouldn't go along with what was going on. So left the club, or was forced out of the club. I don't know quite what happened. And then it was like a power vacuum, and people that really weren't qualified to make good decisions for the football club weren't there. There was no one in position. So then you get people filling that vacuum that are either fly-by-nights, or people that really haven't got a clue, or people that are just sycophants to these rich owners. And from that point on, it's a downward spiral, and that's happened at Birmingham for far too long.
I think the death knell for me was the Dong in full tracksuit at the training ground, and at that point I was out. I have to say, but anyway, so it obviously came to an end, and by the sounds of it, it's sort of a familiar theme from Birmingham, unfortunately. And then you went down the road. So how did that come about? Was that?
It's as simple as I'm out of work. I'm like anyone else. I've got to
Yeah.
pay a mortgage.
It's a job, yeah.
I get a phone call from the new academy manager who's going into Aston Villa at the time, Mark Harrison, who's also actually, I shouldn't say he's a Blues fan, but yeah, I know Mark. I've known him for a while. You know, and he rings me and says, "Would you be interested in talking to us about this job?" And I was like, "100%, absolutely." You know, I think everyone would understand. You know,
Yeah.
if I didn't take that job, I can't feed my family. So, but listen, what I will say is, and again, this won't be popular. I had a fantastic time at Aston Villa. They've got an ownership that is to be envied. And in the year I spent there, everybody was fantastic to me. I really enjoyed my time there, and it's a football club on the up. Whether people like that or not, that's a fact.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see when Grealish gets sold to a big club. But anyway, they didn't do great in the week, did they? Without him. So I think just on that. So you had a good time, and then you obviously moved on to what you're doing now. Was that? Is that because you wanted to get back into that sort of assistant manager role, or where was your head with that?
Or do you just want to leave Villa? Just.
No. As I said, I was enjoying my time at Villa.
Yeah.
And I was really grateful to Mark Harrison, especially, for giving me the opportunity. What happened was a good friend of mine, Jimmy Shan, who was the West Brom caretaker manager.
Yeah.
When they got into the playoffs, they very narrowly lost to Villa on penalties. I'd known Jimmy a long time since working with the under 11s and 12s at Blues, and we'd always struck up a good relationship. And the simple fact of the matter was, Jimmy got the Solihull Moors job and rang and asked if I wanted to assist him in that job. And as I said, I was enjoying my time at Villa. I went and told Mark straight away. I said, "Look, there's a chance that this might happen." I didn't want it to be a shock to him, but it all happened very quick with Jimmy. I had to give Jimmy a quick decision, and yeah, I made the decision to go back into first team football. I wanted the opportunity to work with first team players again. As I said, enjoying my time at the Aston Villa Academy. I suppose the long and short of it is I've done it for a number of years, apart from sort of 1.5, 2 years as first team at Blues. I'd been working in youth development for 14, 15, 16 years, and proven that I could help to develop players right up to, full England international level. And I suppose I felt I had some unfinished business at first team level. And, obviously the aim for me and Jimmy is to get Solihull promoted and to do really, really well there and to get Solihull up the leagues. And that'd be really, really exciting. So I just thought the excitement of that project and working with Jimmy and learning off someone who's a top coach, again, because you never stop learning, was too good an opportunity to turn down. And listen, if it doesn't work out at Solihull, then, I might not have made the right decision, but I truly feel I have. And I think we can really do some good stuff at Solihull and move the club in the right direction.
It's been good so far.
Yeah.
Definitely. I follow Moors all the time, where I can. If Blues aren't playing, I'll be down at a Moors game. Firmly the best hot dogs I've ever had at a football game are down at Solihull Moors. Pardon?
Terry makes them, doesn't he? Is it Terry?
Yeah. Yeah, it's Terry, and then who else is it? I'm trying to remember who else. Someone else, but it's not coming to me. But I think I like everything about Solihull Moors, so I could completely understand why you'd want to go to a club like that that's run well and
absolutely great owners. A lot of people there I know, and moving in the right direction. So listen, we're never just going to walk it and win every single game. We're going to lose some, we're going to win some, and we're playing top of league tonight. So it'll be a good test for us playing against Torquay. So hopefully we can turn them over and get on a run. It's been so difficult to get a steady run of games, no rhythm. Hopefully we can do that now. And we've had 7 away games on the trot. I mean, it's been unbelievable. I don't know any other team that's ever had that. So it's been a tough time. And we've managed to pick up points along the way, but hopefully we've got a number of home games now, and our home form has been really good, so we can get on a good run, like I said, and go from there. But it's been great to, we signed Adam Rooney, we've got Gleeson there, Hancock's, Darren Carter, myself, Julius Shelton, Daryl, the owner's a big Blues fan. I believe he tried to buy the club at one stage. Tim Murphy, the other guy who owns the club with Tim, with Daryl. So loads of good Blues people. It's been really.
I wish he did buy the club.
I'll get a chance soon.
Definitely.
So just talking about Yeah, I don't want to put a dampener on it because Richard's been really good, and we tend to say that the people that are really invested in the club, whether it be players or coaching staff, that from a fan's point of view, just to thank you for the time and efforts that you put in there, which leads us on to where we are now. So I tend to ask this to most of the guests, because I don't like being an after timer, and I think it's very easy to say, when Karanka was appointed, were you positive about that when he was appointed? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really hard to, obviously you see the product on a Saturday, but it's really, really hard to know exactly what a manager's like until you've been around it and see how they work with and interact with players and how they interact on the grass. But yeah, I think like a number of the Blues fans, I was positive, especially from what had gone on before with the previous manager, Pep Clotet. But I think it's going to be hard for any manager at the moment down there. I really think it's going to be hard for any manager. Guardiola and Mourinho coming tomorrow, are they going to make too much difference? I can't see it, and that's the be all and end all of it, really.
And where do you think? Obviously, there's been a lot of, obviously, like yourself, with lots of games in a very short period of time, and ones I think as supporters we would hope to have got more out of. Did you watch the game against Sheff Wednesday Saturday, or have you seen any highlights?
I watched Millwall and I watched Luton, but I didn't see Sheff Wednesday.
But and as far as the Luton performance, because again, I think probably being from a negative point of view, from a coaching, you've been in the game a lot. Luton are, they're probably, let's say they're probably bottom half of the championship at best. So you're approaching that game. How disappointing is it, and how can you maybe articulate that a team goes out in a game that is vital, that in inverted commas we should win, to be so flat? I mean, it happens, but why does that sort of happen, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody could put a finger on it, John, they'd be they'd be top of their field in whatever they're in. I think Blues went into that game lowest ebb in confidence, and that does strange things to players, because all of a sudden no one wants to get on the ball. People don't want to express themselves. You might do like even a set play routine, and it's a little bit risky, and players don't want to risk it. They don't want to give it away, and players go within themselves. And it looked like a performance like that. And to go then to Sheffield Wednesday and get that 3 points, the value of that 3 points and the impact of that 3 points will be huge, for Birmingham going forward into the games coming up. I mean, obviously it's a tough one next with Norwich, but just getting that 3 points can galvanise people, can bring people out the shell. And whatever was done in between the Luton game and Sheffield Wednesday game, on the training pitch or off the training pitch, there might not have been a lot done, but the impact of what the fans did, that could really, really help. I saw that post. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And, if nothing's done, then nothing happens, but a manager will go away and a manager will work with the players and do as much as they can on the grass. It was only a short space of time, but they'll have meetings and the way to talk to the players, and maybe the players get themselves together. But certainly, what the fans did was great and could only have contributed to, I don't know what the performance was like at Sheffield Wednesday, but what was a fantastic 3 points.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it on the we did a pod, we reviewed the game, and Karanka himself came out and mentioned the sort of banner outside the training ground. And it's all about, the little things, isn't it? That sort of, eventually that all sort of come together. If everything's positive, it can only have that positive effect.
Yeah.
But as far as performance is concerned, the one major difference, and it was stark, was Raheem Harper playing centre mid. And just having that, like you said, he showed absolutely no signs of being, don't want to give it away. He was the kid that just wanted the ball all the time. And honestly, I really wanted to ask you this question. One of the guys that I never really got a run at Blues, but when he played, I thought he was exceptional, was Reece Brown, in that sort of centre mid, never give it away, always wanted it. He didn't look the happiest guy on the planet, I will say that. But it's been a while since we've had that type of midfielder that will just take the responsibility. So, I mean, is that something that, like you said, can you coach that? Is that something where, or is that just a God-given?
I think I think it can be knocked out of players, which is truly a shame. But you mentioned Reece there. I knew Reece as a 9-year-old, and I still speak to Reece to this day. I mean, he was fearless.
Brilliant footballer.
Fearless.
Brilliant footballer.
Great lad. I love Reece, and it was a crying shame it didn't work out for him at Birmingham. And you know, I repeat this story. I sent Reece through from the under-23s 3 times into the first team, and ultimately he kept coming back. And he won't mind me saying, you know, it was just immature things like he hated the gym. He just loved being on the training pitch, and he might miss a gym session. And when you're a young lad in and around the first team environment, the first team players won't let you get away with that. They won't like that. So he'd come back, and then he'd come back, and he just wanted to play football. So as long as he's playing football, he didn't really mind where he was, in the playground, reserves, or first team pitch. He wouldn't kick him a fuss. Although, of course, you know, he's ambitious and he wanted to be in the first team. And ultimately, that at the minute, that's probably cost him playing at the level he should have played at, because I think he should have been a Premier League footballer.
Yeah.
But, you know, all that being said and done, he's playing at Peterborough and he's having a good career for himself. But yeah, the young players will do that, John. And Raheem Harper's a young player that will go and get on the ball, and he won't care too much for previous results. He won't care too much for the clubs in a bit of a malaise and a decline. He'll just want to go and get. I thought he'd done well at Millwall and Luton as well. You know, he'll just want to get on the ball and make things happen. And young players can have that effect. And I'm not saying anything about the current manager. I don't know him at all, but managers often stick with tried and trusted and what they know. And you know, being a big advocate for young players, there's sometimes a big plus in throwing a young one in and letting them play without fear and without any pressure on their shoulders, because often they won't read too much into it, they won't think, and they can be a revelation for you.
Yeah, and I think on that point, mate, you've got to give Karanka some. I mean, he's had a lot of clog, and he deserves it. You know, for a lot of the decisions he's made. But he was a lot braver, to be fair, in his recent selections. And yeah, obviously one game doesn't make a season, but I think you're right. Those 3 points are absolutely vital. I mean, if we'd have lost that game, I just can't see how we could have sort of come back from it.
No, it is Norwich next, isn't it?
Yeah, tonight.
Yeah. So we'll play Norwich, and on the back of that, I think hopefully we'll start the game a lot better than we've been starting games.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
If you get a foothold in the game and you nick one, then all of a sudden, you know, things just turn. I just don't want to get anyone's hopes up. I just hope that, you know, the club can stay up this year. And, you know, we've said about, would it be better to go down? None of us want that. And hopefully things can kick off and kickstart us going forwards.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Just as we sort of wrap it up, the continual theme in these sort of pods where we ask our guests, if you could, you know, take one of the players that, certainly from your point of view, that you've coached and you've been involved with, and if you dropped them into the team now, given the circumstances that we're in, who do you think that could go in there and do the best job for the club from the guys that you've coached over all those years?
That's a really good question. I'm probably going to go for Nathan. I have got a soft spot for him, but I think for me, any team needs someone that can unlock and 1v1s, and there was no one better at 1v1s than Nathan. On top of that, I don't think he scored the amount of goals that I'd hoped he would in his career, but the Nathan that burst into the team at Birmingham with nothing else going on in his mind and just fearless, getting shots off from everywhere. And he's still like that a little bit now, without a doubt. He's a better player than he was then. But yeah, I'd go for Nathan because he can unlock so many doors in so many different ways, with his pace, with a trick, with a shot. He'd be the one that, if you ask me tomorrow, who could you get back into that team? It'd be Nathan Redmond, definitely.
I think that's a brilliant shout.
Yeah.
Brilliant shout.
And I know that he'd give nothing more than to finish his career at Birmingham or come back at one stage. He thinks that much of the club.
Well,
I hope so.
Yeah, and me. But he's in an interesting midfield at the moment. I think we've got Mark Ward in there and Martin O'Connor. So he's with some good company.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
I can't wait to actually build that squad from all the.
Oh, absolutely! It's superb. Liam Day, centre half, fantastic.
Oh, what a guy! Do you remember when he used to run round his fist around the cop? I love that.
I loved it.
Those were brilliant days, weren't they?
Weren't they? The best. Richard, thank you very much for your time. That's been, just a joy. And
brilliant having you on, mate.
Richard, appreciate it.
And good luck with Solihull. Let's hope you turn Torquay over.
On the moors.
Absolutely. But for now, everybody, thanks for taking the time to download the pod. Again, please go to www.bluesfocuspod.co.uk. Subscribe, never miss any content going forward. Got loads of guests coming up. And yeah, please enjoy it. But for now, stay safe and keep writing.